Welcome to this week's GCN Tech Clinic, where we aim to answer your bike, tech and maintenance related questions that you have been leaving in the comment section underneath our videos. This week we have Mark and myself doing our absolute best to answer the questions within the allotted time. Mark, over to you for the first question.
All right, first one from Peter Smith CA. He says, "Hey guys, hashtag as GCN Tech. I'm older and live in a steep hilly area. I'm running Shimano 105 Di2 with 5034 crank and 1134 cassette. Can I run an even larger cassette with 105, like an 1136 or even a 40? I'd like something even easier on these hills if possible. Thanks."
Yes.
Yeah, so what's the deal here? Because I know there's a limit, obviously, with the length of the derailleurs. You'll know a little bit more than me, but I know it's changed with the 105 Di2.
Yeah, so bog standard 105 Di2, you can go up to an 1136. They can go one cassette size bigger on this. It's going to make climbing up hills a little bit easier. If you go back like a previous generation, with different levels of group sets as well, you tend to look to have different lengths of cages on the derailleur. So the bigger the cassette, the bigger the length of the derailleur cage to account for that jump in ratio.
So what would this person do if they wanted to go up to something as extreme as a 40?
Well, I think you're going to have to, if you want to use a massive cassette like that, you're going to have to use one of those little derailleur hanger extenders, which basically places the derailleur slightly further down.
Right.
These are products not made by the group set manufacturers, but there's aftermarket ones out there, which just place the derailleur lower to give it extra space for those massive cassettes.
Interesting. Okay.
So yeah, you got a few different options out there, but a 34 inner ring and a 36 biggest tooth on the cassette is a pretty low ratio.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, next question is from Rustarker6004. They say, if the front brake does the lion's share of the braking, why not design bikes with a disc brake on the front and direct mount brakes on the rear? Less weight, less frame modification, etc. Well, I actually think that is quite a good idea.
It's not a bad idea, and I can understand the logic behind this. And so I was trying to wonder whether you'd sort of catch yourself out with like the modulation of the different style brakes, but maybe I'm overthinking it there.
Well, I just think from a aesthetic point of view, it's going to look weird having a disc brake on the front and a rim brake on the back. That has been done in the past by some brands. I have seen that before. Like, I want to say cheaper mountain bikes going back.
I don't think you'd notice it as bad as you expect because you've got the cassette that almost kind of looks the shape of a rotor.
Right, there are a couple of like sensible and logical things I want to point out here. You're going to not be able to use exactly the same wheels, front and rear. The likelihood is if you're going to have a hydraulic disc brake on the front and a cable brake at the back, you're not going to have the same levers, so then it will feel very different. And I just don't think it's the greatest solution. I mean, you could do it quite easily if you just put a disc brake fork into your bike and checked that it was all compatible. But I don't think it's the solution.
Sounds like a lot of faff, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So we don't want faff in our lives.
Just accept one or the other, rim brakes or disc brakes. Don't combine the two.
Right, next one from Sealant. Curious if you guys think it's worth the money and time to fix up older bikes. I have a formerly amazing giant TCR Advanced SL, that is a good bike, from 2012 that I can't seem to part ways with. I know it would also take a fair amount of money to overhaul the bike, and even then, I'd have limitations bringing it into modern era. Max tyre width, for example, 25mm, no electric, shifting option, rim brake only, etc. Am I purchasing nostalgia, or is there some merit to projects like these?
Ooh. Do you want to kick us off? Any thoughts on this?
So tyre width is an interesting one. There will be, I guess, some limitations. 25mm is good, getting a 25mm tyre in there. But I guess if you do start going on rougher surfaces, obviously nowadays we'd opt for like 28mm and even maybe
30,
bigger, 30. That's kind of standard now. So you would be limiting yourself a little bit.
A little bit, but it's not the end of the world.
No.
I've been riding my old retro Trek that I fitted a modern group set on. That I can only fit 26mm tyres in that, and that still works cool. I really love riding that bike. So, like on that basis, my advice and experience from literally doing a project like this would be go for it. I think it's good to keep like older bikes alive, and you'll appreciate a bike that's got a bit of soul to it, I think.
Yeah, 12's not that old, really.
No, I mean, it's not old at all.
Not that old. Yeah. You can have it. It's still a great bike.
Well, this is the issue when brands release a brand new bike every year. All of a sudden, your bike seems dated, but it's not that old.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go on then. Next
All right,
question.
next one from Prispin. I've waxed my chain and I don't live in a wet climate. What do I do to prevent those annoying rust spots on my cassette?
This isn't a problem I've had really.
No, it's interesting. And if you don't live in a wet climate, that's odd that the cassette is rusting.
My thoughts here are perhaps after washing the bike, you've just not dried the cassette properly and you've got a bit of moisture sat on there. So take extra time to clean and dry the cassette thoroughly. Simple. Yeah. Next question is from Hoppy Tossig. How would you say that?
Hop Tossig?
Yeah, fantastic. Hello there. Winter is coming in a few months' time and I'm a little curious about switching from inner tubes, brackets TPU, to tubeless on my nice summer bike, but I wonder what will happen to the sealant when the bike tyre is stationary or almost stationary for the entire winter. Will the sealant dry up in one place and I have a big lump inside the tyre? Will it get worse if I top the sealant up every 2 to 3 months? Just basically, they can't seem to find the answers to this kind of stuff. Can we help?
This is a really good question. So for day-to-day commuting, you are absolutely falling into the realms of tubeless being the answer, I believe. It's made for that sort of purpose, right? But I totally get that if you're then leaving the bike for 2 to 3 months, yes, the tubeless will dry up, or potentially dry up, and almost certainly will dry up. So don't go just topping up the tubeless sealant on top of that. However, I understand the faff involved with all of that, but what I would say is the benefit of having that tubeless setup day in, day out during your commutes, hopefully never having a puncture, outweighs that little bit of time that it takes to then whip the tyre off at the end of the winter period when you want to then start commuting again.
So like set it up,
get the tubeless set up again, and off you go again, hopefully not having to stop and being late for work and getting wet in the rain and all sorts of things.
Okay, so you're saying it just accepts the fact that over winter it's going to dry up and then you're going to have to like go with like a full reset.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree actually. I don't think inner tubes are a bad option by any stretch. But yeah, the sealant is going to dry out, and I completely agree.
Yeah.
Right, next question is from John in the Connor 8721. Is it possible to change a 10-speed wheel to 11-speed? If so, can we explain or do a video? Yeah, it's possible.
I actually didn't know the answer to this.
Oh, okay,
so there
right.
we go.
Shall I go then?
Yeah.
So depending on what wheel brand you've got, some of them will have different free hubs available, so you can go buy an 11-speed free hub, simply swap the 10-speed one out. Or if you are really set on using a wheel set that's designed for 10-speed, but you really want to get it set up 11-speed. I did something very similar a little while back, and it's a bit of a faff. You essentially have to like machine a selection off the back of the cassette, which I can totally appreciate for most people is not something you can just go and do.
Yeah.
But seeing as I've got friends which have a lathe and can do this kind of stuff, it was easy for me. But that's kind of like your solution. There's also some cassettes out there that are designed to fit onto a 10-speed free hub, but are 11-speed. So that kind of
very interesting
fixes your problem as well.
I know there are some limitations when you've got certain size and you just... Anyway.
But there are solutions out there. So there you go. There's a couple of good examples.
Okay, next one from Aurelian8773. Is there any benefit of having a bike frame with narrow tyre clearance? Does it make the frames stiffer, lighter, or more aero? This is interesting, kind of off the back of that previous question about the giant TCR.
I'm going to actually say I don't think it would make the bike stiffer. You could argue that it might be able to make the bike lighter because there's simply less material needing to be used to make it wider to accommodate the tyre, but we're talking like teeny tiny amounts. I don't think it's going to make the bike stiffer because a fairly basic rule of construction or engineering is if you want to make something more stable, you increase the distance of the base or the gap between.
And also, what we're also proving in terms of aerodynamics more laterally is like the narrower isn't always necessarily faster. Actually, kind of allowing that space for the air to flow through.
That's good.
Is actually better rather than sort of that dirty air of kind of
the
pressure of the air trying to flow through these tight areas. So I'm not sure. Okay. It does work. So, sorry.
Yeah, I don't think there's a benefit to having like a frame with narrow clearance, basically. Simple answer.
Right, next question, penultimate question. Too old for this. Dear GCN Gurus, mid-September, I'm going on my longest bike packing trip to date, UK to outdoors.
Wow.
That's a big one. Change tyres from 40, 45 down to 32s, then cycle the Alp and the
Quad-a-fur.
What is it? The
Quad-a-fur.
Quad-a-fur.
Oh, you're going to get murdered in the comments for that.
Is that a
people are not going to be happy. Go on.
Before cycling back to Blighty, it's a bucket list thing. I'm cycling there on a 2023 Genesis. A Quad-a-fur.
Named after
there
the
we
client.
go. Okay. Car. So this thing's big enough that they named a bike after it.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Titanium with tubeless racks and alt-lib bags. My question is simple. Well, we got there eventually.
Yeah,
We're on to
right, we're on to the question.
As weight is vital, can I safely use TPU inners? Majority of my riders tarmac like gravel. Or are TPU inners as difficult to repair as some not quite as guru as you suggest on the internet? Also, are TPU valves too brittle for such a long ride? Many thanks for the continued genius stuff.
Lovely.
We
got there in the end.
It's a thesis.
Okay, right. Luckily, the answer's simple. TPU tubes, without a doubt, are suitable for the application that you want to do. They're going to be lighter, they're going to help you ride a little bit further and cover more distance, basically, for a little bit less effort. That's great when you're doing a big, long event. They're also going to pack up super small, so you can put a couple of spares. I would say the size of a TPU tube compared to a standard butyl one, I reckon you could fit 3 TPU tubes in the same space. So that's pretty cool. And they're actually super easy to repair. There's loads of like instant patches that can just go straight over. So if you do get a puncture, scuff the surface up, clean it up a little bit, stick your instant patch on, and away you go.
And how about the valves?
The valves, brittle? I've not heard of anything about the valves.
No, I've not heard about them being brittle either.
Well, choose something from a reputable brand and you should have no issues.
Yeah.
Right, on to our last question. This is from Wire It. And they're saying, what gears should I shift on the bike when leaving it for the next ride or long term? My road bike, I've got a Shimano Sora 2x9. When I'm leaving it alone, I set it to the smallest in the front and the hardest on the cassette. Why? Some bicycle shops recommend this with health of derailleur, but there's a problem. It bends the chain. So basically, they're trying to say, what's the solution? Shift into the middle of the cassette, or where should they leave it when they're leaving their bike for a long period of time?
It's a good question, actually.
What would you do?
So I always remember people telling me this, and like, oh yeah, you should always put it in so the chain's got the most slack on it.
Yeah.
But I mean, what I do is not give
Derry care.
Yeah, care in the world and leave it as I finish. However, I mean, I can understand the whole chain bend argument. Maybe put it in like, I don't know, if I was to worry about this sort of thing, I'd put it in the small ring on the front and leave it kind of middle of the cog.
Yeah, I get the logic. I totally get the logic. Look, it really doesn't matter. Don't worry about it. Don't stress. Ride your bike. Do whatever is going to mean you're more likely to get back on your bike sooner and ride it more often. Don't sweat it. Worry about something else.
It does take quite a long time to change the chain and stuff, doesn't it? So
it's not going to cause any damage to the chain because there's no stress and force going through it. The springs and the derailleur is not going to change, but this is... I feel like it's one of those sort of old tales that people tell.
Yeah.
And I'm going to throw it out there. Completely ignore it. Right.
Good stuff.
What a way to end this week's Tech Clear. Mark, thanks for joining us. As always, if we didn't answer your questions, I apologise and we'll get some in the coming weeks.
Right. And we're not talking about these questions on today's show.
No. Right. See you later. Bye.